Agriculture continues to play a vital role in the economic and social well-being of a country. The agricultural sector provides employment opportunities for millions of people. Unfortunately, the sector faces various challenges such as insecurity, climate change, aging farmers, crude farming methods, and limited access to finance and needed resources to boost productivity. Now, these issues not only impact the efficiency of farmers, but is gradually affecting the country's ability to ensure that its people are food secure. As Nigerians await President Tinubu's ministers to get their portfolios and begin work in earnest, it has become necessary to set an agenda for the incoming Minister of Agriculture on best ways to increase the sector's performance, whoever the Minister of Agriculture is going to be. So joining us in the studio is former Chairman, Agri Group, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, African Farmer Mogaji. It's nice to have you join me now.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And we also have the CEO, Bama Farms Limited, Wale Oyekoya. It's nice to have you join me.
Nice for having
Good
me.
morning.
Good morning.
Great. And we have the Vice President, Federation of Agricultural Commodity Association of Nigeria, Kabir Shitu, MON, joining us from Abuja. Good morning, Kabir.
Good morning. Thank you for being there. Thank you.
Great. Good to see you. All right. Now, African farmer, let me start with you here. The point there is, I had said before that the DNA of Nigeria is in agriculture. Yeah. That is why you see even our national flag has the green, white, green, the green representing agriculture. That's where we came from, and that has sustained this country, you know, in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and even the 70s and so on. Eventually, the story of how things turned out, and then we relied on oil and so on. But as it is where we are now, everybody has agreed that agriculture is what will sustain this country going forward. Even if we discover gold and discover more, but agriculture is one thing that is going to sustain people, because every population, every child that is born today has to eat. Yeah. So if we all agree this is what we need to do, how come it's so challenging to revamp the agricultural sector? Maybe we've not found the formula, or what are you seeing?
Okay, before I address that, I would like to also acknowledge that Mr. Wiley, contributing today, is also a former chairman of the Agri Group at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce and Industry?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's
before
good.
Me.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. So we've not been able to harness agriculture because we've been focusing a lot on projects and programs and not people. And we've had the Ministry of Agriculture and various administrations, spanning like 30 years, focusing on crops, items, as against systems. The sole business of the Ministry of Agriculture is to create an enabling environment for the private sector to take advantage of the opportunities. And so they make profit and create impact. The Ministry of Agriculture is supposed to focus on the 11 parastatals under them, the quarantine, the research institute. Once those parastatals operate effectively and efficiently, every other thing will work. But when the ministry is focusing on project, let's grow cassava, let's grow rice, that's all they focus on. They now neglect pineapple, they neglect oil palm, forgetting that bleached oil palm is most of the vegetable oil we consume. All the noodles we take contains palm oil. All the soaps we take, toothpaste, everything contains palm oil. So they're supposed to ensure that the institutions under them are functional and the private sector, take effect. So, recently they announced some 200 billion that are going into agriculture. That is very small when you consider how much the private sector will spend. So instead of the ministry focusing on the private sector, they narrowly focus on the peanuts that is coming into the sector. So we may not be food secure if that still continues.
Wale, I wonder what you see. You have been on ground, and I imagine you going to the farm to check your, what you're producing on daily basis, seeing this thing and juxtaposing them against the cost of transportation, the cost of this, the cost of that, diesel and so on. Now, how is the Forex on one hand, the fuel on the other hand, how is it affecting, how is it impacting your activity? I'm using you now as a focal point, and how are you navigating this? Because I know there are so many other farmers that all of you engage and interact on how to navigate through these things.
It's a very tough decision to have made, and it's affect me, it affects everybody also, not even the farmers. We all see what is going on with the subsidy now. And I keep on saying it, that until our government or our leaders are able to get away from paper's policy into people's rental policy, we keep on mixing it. Paper policy means somersault policy. Because the policy is there, we have the same policy like any other country, any advanced countries. But the problem we're having is implementations, which is what I mean by people's rental policy. Yes, it affects everybody, especially transportation is a key. It's one of the key sectors that need to be looked into, especially people in the rural areas. How do we transport our goods from the rural areas to the urban area? Transporting a trailer loads of maize now from the north down to the south here, you're talking almost about 450,000 naira. So when you put that on top of what you have already bought in a very high price, definitely it's going to shoot up the prices when you get to the market. And you have to remember that this world is about competitive. We compete with animals taking the same grains, the same thing with human beings, not to talk of the manufacturing companies. So by the time, I remember one time when the former president, when he sent some of the ministers to go into the market to see why the price of goods is so skyrocketed. We just sit there and say, is it the minister that's supposed to go there or the stakeholders in this sector? Call them. What are we doing that the production is very low? What are we doing that the price of these goods are very high? And I bet you the same minister will send some of his PA. He will not even send his wife to go to the market. So we are mixing so many things together until we can get people's rental policy. We keep on having the same problem.
All right, Kabir, you were joining us from Abuja. Let me take you on the issue of the Ministry of Agriculture. You have worked with, you've engaged government agencies at different times and so on. And as it is, of course, everyone is still waiting for who the Minister of Agriculture is going to be. They have been screened, waiting for the president to, allocate those and then make the announcement. But from your perspective, what kind of Minister of Agriculture are you expecting?
Thank you. Good morning. For us, if you look at it, we need an agricultural minister that understands agricultural sector and took agriculture as a business, not as being government just to dig out papers, seminars, and to know. We need an agricultural minister that every day is in one farm or the other. And we need an agricultural minister that knows what to do in each state. And I'll give you an example. It has become imperative that Nigerians must go back to that agriculture. Now, agriculture is like our oil, if we know what we are doing. And for us to get there, we are already there. How to now expand and make it work is what Mr. President should. So in looking for who will be the minister, it must be somebody that will make it work. We must now look at, okay, what are the cash crops that we can export? What are the stable foods that we can grow within the country that will now be food sufficient? And not just about going about white paper or any, no. We have gone beyond that. And even as a president, you must support the minister to also be able to now establish farms, houses, every state. Each state must be asked to bring the crop that they can take comparative advantage on. And that state, and I'll give you an example. for us to make our agricultural sector work, we must see a minister who believes that in conjunction with water resources, they must resuscitate our dams that are closed, especially when you are looking at Lake Chad. We must bring Lake Chad back to life. We must see a minister who believes that we must bring our forest back into life, where we can also be growing our foods. We must see a minister that will look at opera forest around Shaki in Oyo State, where you can grow cotton, where Benin Republic are even coming into Nigerian territory to grow cotton and sell it in their own country. We must look at a minister that believes that issue of food must be sufficient in Nigeria. That is what we need now. Nigerians must have food sufficiency that we can also export and then take comparative advantage of what we have. We must look at ministers that will look at the coastal area and say enough is enough for Indians and other nationals that go to high sea, take our fish, take our shrimps, take all our marine resources, and then they will now put it into processing within our territorial water, bring it to Nigeria as we are import, sell it as exorbitant price. We must say a minister now that will go to Ekpe and say, look, Ekpe people, come on the young youth in Lagos State. Let's go to high sea. Give them trawlers. Let them go to high sea. Then, so that we can harness the resources within our coastal areas. These are the type of minister we need.
Okay. All right. I'll come back to you on it. You are the president or vice president of the Federation of Agricultural Commodity Association. Of course, the federal government has come up with the issue of commodity and exchange market. We'll be discussing that because it seemed to be central to what the federal government wants to do. But let's go on a short break. When we come back, we'll go ahead with this discussion. Stay with us. Right. You're watching TVC Breakfast. Now, we're discussing agriculture here, and there are so many aspects to it, and my guests have been giving us insight into some of the things. Now, Kabir, let me come to you on this issue of commodity and exchange that the federal government, the new government of President Bola Tinubu has shown intention or shown interest or passion to transform. Now, they have talked about, in fact, President Tinubu, at the time of campaigning, was talking about the issue of reintroducing the commodity and exchange market as a way of creating a buffer between the farmers and the buyers or consumers and so on, especially when a lot of our products get wasted and get rotten away and so on with no one to buy them. But speak to us from that window how important this is. We recall how the commodity and exchange market had existed before and how it was able to regulate and stabilize price. What will be done differently now that we have, the government is coming up with this commodity and exchange platform?
Thank you. Commodity and exchange market board, which the federal government is bringing on board, is a very, very good development in the sense that, one, it will make sure that we have a stable price of the commodity, because they can mop up if it is in excess. And then when it is the crops are not available, they can also bring it out. Secondly, it will promote, because I can now from my farm trade my product, and then some people will be in the warehousing who can take off from my own farm, and then those dealing with in the storage facilities will also be able to trade their product, even in getting finance. It will boost finances to agriculture. It will allow farmers easy access to fund, because individuals can now even come into it, be able to now liaise with the commodity market, And then in that respect, give money or input to the farmers, believing that as soon as the farmer able to harvest, he will be able to get profit on his money. This will boost agricultural sector in few time, in a time that people will now see that agriculture is becoming a business. Agriculture is no more where it was, where after you farm, you are left on your own to take it to the market. If it rotten away, you lose your money, and it discourages people. And if you look at in those days, we are growing cotton, we are growing palm, we are growing granite. Where there are so many activities you have in the east. You have the Ada palm, you have the Bayelsa palm, you have many other. You have cocoa, you have all these. You have granite, pyramid, and so on. And then even Goma Arabic in Maiduguri. You all went dead because whenever they have harvested, it rotted away because there's no board or nobody to move it up. So this commodity exchange will help a lot in ameliorating this problem we face, why people abandon cotton, people abandon all those cash crop. So it's a welcoming development, and it will boost our agricultural sector, and especially in injecting finances into the agricultural sector. And then it is also of advantageous when you are talking of export, because that means you have your farm, you bring up your product, the exchange to the exchange market. They can also trade it for you in the international market, and then they will bring standardize the product to meet the international standard. I think these are, because now you have grades. You have those ones that cannot be exported, and then you'll be able to now bring up those that can be exported. So there will be a synergy between the farmers and then the exchange commodity officials, and then the individuals or private sectors that want to invest in agriculture. It will help us. Our export will be boosted, and in fact, even our food security will be boosted. In case of times of disasters, through exchange market, there will be insurance that will cover all those lost that make people to run out of agriculture. And it will make agricultural business, as I've earlier said, no more just this thing.
Okay. Thank you, Kabiru. All right. Now, African farmer, let me ask you this. Now, the point is, we seem to not to be too sure of the products that we want to adopt. There has been times where when a minister comes, oh, it is yams. When another minister comes, oh, it is rice. When another minister comes, oh, it is cassava, and so on. And then the government seems to put the whole of its effort into campaigning for that product. But in this country, we've had Operation Feed the Nation before. We've had the Back to Land policy. We had, the Green Revolution. We've had those consistent agricultural vision before, where, a lot of things were grown at the same time, not focusing on one product. It was the days of cocoa, the granite pyramids, the palm, and so on. How do we go back to that agriculture that is broad instead of focusing on just rice sometimes, or maybe yam on the other, and then maybe cassava and so on?
So again, it is ignorance. Ignorance and exposure on behalf of the federal minister and the minister for state. When they are not exposed or grounded in the agric space, then they come up with the myopic narrowing. Now, we cannot narrow to 5 or 6 or 7. We can pick. Let the system work. Success leaves clues. When Nigeria was leading in almost everything, we had cocoa, cola, rice, we had everything working, yams and coal. So bottom line is, the systems must work. The minister must focus on the systems and focus on creating an enabling environment for the private sector. It's the private sector that will in turn, make these things work. So if they come with another operation, check the last, and I always take from 1999 to date. Every administration has been moving in the same cycle. They've been repeating the same mistakes. Unfortunately now, yes, we don't have a team in place, but the things we are chunking out is 100% a replica of what has been happening before. You want to produce X hectares of cassava. It's the same thing, the recipe for failure that we've been embracing. What we should do is create the enabling environment, develop cooperatives, especially private sector, not the smallholder farmers. We focus too much on the smallholder farmers. The smallholder farmers are aged farmers now. We need to recreate another smallholder farmers, which are youths in the rural communities. So get the cooperatives of the multinationals together, the cooperatives of the telecom together, and create this environment and open them up to the possibilities. All cooperatives want to earn money to be able to pay dividend to their cooperators. So and all of them are finding it very difficult now to earn money because they buy television, buy video. Nobody is buying all those anymore. So if you get them involved and you open them up and you protect them, they make the money. And so government that does not have money will not have to focus on that. So a lot of this is on private sector. It's just getting the people who know, who have burnt their hands and know how these things go. So Abuja, it needs to be decentralized now. You need to work with people in regions, talk nationally, but operate from, and that's why you need this array of special advisors whose job is to focus with targets and come back, and you and an administrator. See, everything we need, we already have. The Ministry of Agriculture is full of experts and professionals with the know-how. But if you don't give them the direction, it will be business as usual. It's the direction that the ministry staffs work with. They are experts, they know what to do, but if the minister is not willing to listen, and also, why these things don't work, again, is that you bring special advisors who are, permit me to use the word Tokumbo, you bring them into the country.
Not tear over.
Not tear over. You bring them into the country with good exposure and certifications and degrees, but their knowledge works in climates where you say sit down and they sit down. You can't tell Nigerians to sit down, they won't sit down. So bottom line now is that the special advisors must be able to work with the ministry. This is why these things don't work. The ministry people, they now want to load it. Oh, I've done it in Italy, in Bulgaria. I want to load it on the ministry, and they will say no. The
terrains are different.
And they will say, okay, we know where policies will hinder this, and sit down and wait. And so when you bring your lofty ideas, you say, oh, this policy cannot allow this. It has to be 80 days. It has to be 90 days. And that's how they now truncate these things. So integration of Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry for Water Resources, Bank of Industry. Bank of Industry is a crucial conversation why we're not getting results. We need modular processing plants in these villages where these things are produced. So when they process, we can actually sell to ourselves and later consider export. Or if they come with any other conversation around another program, as against revamping Anchor Borrower, we've seen the challenges, we've seen the opportunities, we know what will work and what will not work. Let us just use an old name to get to where we are going instead of bringing something new. When they bring something new, it will be new portfolios, it will be new funding. So we can't afford that.
It will be Tokumbo.
It will be Tokumbo.
All right. Now, Wale, there is a talk about, in fact, globally, the issue of food security is one very common topic that every country, United Nations, at their Food and Agriculture Organization, the countries are talking, the regional institutions are talking about food security because of the challenges that human beings face, not just Nigerians. But we're narrowing it down now to Nigerians. When we talk about food security, of course, we've had it before. And one says that there has to be sufficiency before you even talk about exportation. We're not sufficient yet. And there's the issue of foreign exchange earnings from agriculture. Where are we when it comes to how close are we to the food security for ourselves before we even begin to earn foreign exchange from agriculture on any product at all?
I think we are far, far away from the reality of food security in the country. I still remember that for over 10 years, we've been talking about food security, we've been talking about food crisis, whatever the name that just come around that time. When you talk of security, first of all, you have to talk about physical security of farmers. Are they secured going to the farms? Because if they are not secured, how are they going to have a security for the food that they are being produced? And food security, it means that we should be able to feed ourselves. They keep on saying that a nation that cannot feed itself is nothing but a shadow of itself. Yes, the whole world is talking about food security because they always say a hungry man is always an angry man. That's why you see so many people, so many riots. Before you know, you are going on Oshodi. Everybody was fighting. Don't even know what is really happening because some people are really hungry. Yeah, food security, we keep on talking, we keep on blaming the federal government. And I keep on telling people that federal government is not our problem. What about the state government? What about the local government? This is the right time. If the President Tinubu really wanted to succeed in this administration, you really need to empower the local government. The whole 774 local government are just sitting down, waiting on food stamps from the state. Some of these local government, their money come from the state, and the money is not being released to the local government. You have to realize that the people that created local government, they have a purpose, because they are the people that are very closer to the grassroots. Then when the administration that is closer to the grassroots are not being funded, are being neglected, that is the problem we keep on having today. I'm of the opinion that there should be a farm settlement in every local government, and there should be a value chain, meaning processing plants in every local government. There should be a tractors in every local government. By the time you do this, a lot of the youths will tap into the local government. Even the state will be less burdened. The federal government will not be shouting on food security. But why are we blaming the federal government on food security when the local government and the state are not even doing what they're supposed to do? And when you talk of the buyers, apart from the farmers, everybody is in the local government. You should know the people in your locality. That's why in the advanced country, you see that once they are able to produce some of this produce, they cannot consume everything. They take it to the community, which is what they call flea market. Like in America, they use flea market. In China, they use a community market. You are able to feed your nucleus family, and you cannot finish consuming everything. What do? You take it to the market. Your next neighbor that does not have the opportunity to plant should be able to get access to some of this food. So food security is very, very important to any nation. Even the United Nations, the Food Agricultural Organization, FAO, already talked about it, that every nation should go back to the basics. Encourage the people from the rural areas so that it's going to reduce the migration of the rural people into the urban areas. What is in the urban areas? There's nothing but pollutions. So if the rural area are able to stay over there, the pollution in the city will be reduced. Take, for example, Lagos State. We don't have much land. So what can we be doing in Lagos State in order to tap into the agricultural sector? It's nothing but value chains, processing. Ekwe has a vast land of area. The same thing in Ikorodu, the same thing in Badagry. They could set up some of these cluster of value chains in processing plants. Go to the Firo, get some of this equipment to fry gari, to process elubo, plantain chips or plantain flowers. It could be done. It's only if you are focused. But most of the leaders we have today, they are not focused.
All right. Kabir, let me come to you. Wale mentioned the issue of the role of states here, and I'd like to ask you in this regard. Now, chief executives, when they are elected, they have a vision and they have, the plan they want to implement. The president has his own at the federal level. Every state governor that comes on board has his agenda, for agriculture or for whatever. But because we're talking about agriculture now, agriculture or is on the concurrent list where the federal, state, and local government can do anything they want to do on it. But if we are talking about Nigeria, there has to be some kind of a vision that everyone, keys into. Now, that brings us to the real issue now as to how there should be synergy between the federal government and the state government in the vision that the president has when he was campaigning, and also marrying it with the various programs that the state governors have at their own levels as well. How do we melt that mechanic together as a way of getting it right for Nigeria, and not just for a certain state and all of that, because what they do or don't do impact all of us as a country?
Thank you. First of all, the land we are going to farm is vested in the hand of the governor. 90% of the agricultural land is vested in the hand of the governor. And federal government can bring up various programs, but if the state governor did not key into it, it will not work. But in this respect, that we have took ourselves to this level, unlike before, the states, that's why we said, like Federal Ministry of Agriculture in conjunction with the state agriculture, they should look at each state of the country. No state in Nigeria that does not have a product or a crop that they can take comparative advantage on. And then when you now ask each state to come up with what they will, each crop that they can take comparative advantage on, you find that each state will bring up product that will now serve the nation. In area, and I'll give you an example, an area like when you are talking of the southeast, you'll be talking of somewhere like other palm and co. So the state government can be empowered to make sure that in those areas we are getting our palms. Like in Bayelsa now, we can talk of Bayelsa palm. Like in River State, all other those regions are more of palm up to Benin. And then when you are going to the northeast, where you have gum arabic, which is one of the best in the world, you now encourage those state government, and the state government will encourage the local government of that side, because the land is vested in the hand of the governor. So he can now encourage to go into gum arabic, and that is why I also said, because all this we are talking, you need water. That's why I would say in conjunction with the water resources, you must make Lake Chad work. Whatever it will cost Nigeria, Lake Chad must come back to life. If we are able to put Lake Chad back to life, that belt alone, they can feed Nigerians with rice, they can feed Nigerians with wheat, and they can also feed Nigerians with gum arabic. And then if you come into the north central here, where you have citrus, you have a lot of tuber, we can serve the world with starch in terms of cassava, in terms of yam, in terms of other crop, in terms of talking of maize, sorghum, and co. So when you get to the southwest, you can talk of cocoa, you can talk of coffee, you can also talk of cotton. And so also in the northwest, where you can talk of cotton, you can talk of wheat, you can talk of granite, you can talk of beans. So if you put these states in, to ask them to bring and then encourage those crops in that process, and then we must, as we are doing that, put our processing plant together, because you can, if after harvesting, yes, they can take it to exchange market, commodity exchange. But even if commodity exchange, there are those that are perishable, that cannot just wait. So you must also encourage processing. So processing, planting, and then water resources. These are areas that the next government should improve so that we can have enough food for the country.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kabiru. We're running out of time, but let me give the African farmer the last shot here. The point there is I'm very interested in the special advisor list that you mentioned earlier, because the point there is you seem to touch various areas that anyone who is sitting on the pilot's seat, you're flying a nation in that kind of vision, the people who should help one way or the other is very critical. So I'd like you to talk to us about your final take on this, and also let's have those list of special advisors again.
Yeah. So first and foremost, the special advisors from time immemorial is not being paid by federal government.
Okay, you
it's
mentioned
paid by projects. So we need a special advisor on cooperative development.
Cooperative.
We need a special advisor on mechanization. We need on irrigation. We need on impact funding and investment. Okay. We need on value addition, that's processing. We need on market development, so things don't waste. We need on youth and gender, so we can integrate them back into the system. We need stakeholder engagement, somebody who is talking to everybody and not the minister. And we need training and development so that we can have new things come up.
Is that where research should also be?
Yes, training development is under research also, because we have to do continuous training. Yeah. And we need export, because when we produce enough, we need to take it out. But we need to produce with export in focus. And we need media. Which
media
is about
engagement.
Media is the biggest. And we need a media special advisor who has production or processing practical background, so that they don't just say, like in another few weeks, they'll be telling the head of media of the president that food has gone down. But food is not going down. It's just that around August, people harvest at the same time, so prices go down. September, it goes up again. So when they mislead the spokesman and he says these things, the people will come back and say, you are lying to us. So media is huge. If they don't get media right, it's media they use to bring people on board. It's media that they will use to attract investors, people who invest in irrigation and all this. So media, if they get media right, they've gotten everything right. Okay. I can put 28 years of my experience in the field on this.
It's really interesting. Thank you so much, African farmer Mogaji. Thank you very much for coming on the program. Wale Oyekoya, thank you so much for coming as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Kabir Shitu, thank you so much for your insight into our discussions today. Thank you.